Hello, everybody. How are we all? Welcome to Homo Sapiens. My name's Chris Meany. Thank you very much for tuning in. I have got, just before this call started, I described her as my North Star of juice. We can get into why. I've got Megan Crabbe with me again here today. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you, darling. Thanks for having me on again.
You're my North Star of juice because you are very good at coming up with juicy topics to talk about.
Yes.
What did we say last time? What was your juicy? What was our title last time?
It was something about Ozempic.
Did Ozempic kill the body positivity movement?
Well, that's clickbaity as hell, isn't it?
Look at us. Do you think have we turned into the Stephen Bartlett podcast? What was it called? Diary of a CEO?
No, that would be, is Ozempic turning everyone into rabid apes, Something like that.
Yes.
The scientists say yes.
It would, wouldn't it? And I have a real issue. This might just sound like sour grapes, but I do have an issue with the Stephen Bartlettification of all podcasts, which is no one can post a clip online without being like, boom, boom, boom. And it's like, it's so intense. It's like, I feel like there's enough going on in the world without you having to make Jamie Lang telling you what he had for breakfast into like this massive cliffhanger. Do you know what I
mean? It's sad, isn't it? It's a sad indicator of our such limited attention spans and need for everything to be dramatic.
Is that what it is? It's our limited attention spans.
Well, it's that and the algorithm, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But I hear you.
So on our juicy topic for this week, listeners, we thought we'd talk about the Manosphere. And the way that how it's affecting the LGBTQ plus community, which is interesting, really interesting, actually, because I think we sort of see it as something really far from us, but listening to what you wrote in, listeners, and also just diving into it is very interesting in its long tendrils. And the Stephen Bartlett title would be, has the Manosphere infiltrated the LGBTQ plus community? No, well, the Stephen Bartlett one would be, is the Manosphere turning us into what? Zombies?
Will your life be 15 years shorter unless you consume Manosphere content every day? This scientist says yes.
There's always a scientist. But apparently the way they do their topics, which was, someone told me this pre-AI, the Diary of a CEO does this. Someone told me this pre-AI, and therefore it's probably not that hard to do now, is they would research what was the most Googled thing on the internet that week. And then they would reverse engineer an episode about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty smart.
It is. But did anyone at any point go, the title of the podcast is Diary of a CEO. No one who's been a CEO has been on in years.
Yeah, not many diary-like elements either. I think he should start
actually
with a classic Bridget Jones at every episode.
Stephen Bartlett comes down a fireman's pole and we see his bum.
Cigarettes 3. Oh no, sorry, vapes 3.
Oh, that was it. Oh yes. Oh my god. Megan, how are you aside from that? How has it been?
My love. Yeah, I'm all right. I'm having a very kind of slow, appreciating the small things kind of time.
Nice.
Listen, I've sold 85 things on Vinted in the last month, and I'm very proud of that.
Oh, stop it.
I'm basically an entrepreneur, That's what's happening.
Diary of a CEO, I think you'll find.
Move over, Stephen. That's my life at the moment, yeah.
85 things.
Yeah, I'm on a real roll. It is a bit addictive, I'm not going to lie.
Is it?
Yeah, you get a proper little dopamine hit when you sell something, and then you're like bargaining with people, they're sending offers, you're like in charge. It might be a problem.
Because I'm a big eBayer. And I think it is the last corner of the planet where everyone's nice. I think
Yeah.
it's a really lovely space.
That's sad, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I just think like people are really good, and there's an element because you often collect things or they come to you, and so there is a real life person element to it. Also, you exchange addresses, so I think that makes people behave a bit better,
Ooh, okay.
which is interesting.
You do the in-person collection.
Well, as in if it's furniture, because mainly
Yeah.
with me it's large thing. It's like you have to give them your address. I think your address is once you've made a purchase, I think like they can see where to post it or whatever. So I don't know. I just think it invites. You can't be faceless on there, and therefore
Fair.
I think that helps with people just actually just checking themselves a bit, and behaving.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, same with Facebook Marketplace. I haven't had a
Yeah.
negative interaction on there, which is really surprising.
Well, because I heard from my eBay friends that Facebook Marketplace is people just never like turn up.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I haven't sold anything. I've only bought things, so maybe
Oh,
that is the
right.
case. Yeah.
But I did. I wrote someone a really rude message on eBay the other day. They had pissed me off so much.
I want to
that
hear the message.
So I'll keep it brief and try and keep anonymity. This person posted me something, right? It was a little side table and they just hadn't packed it. It's like they just put it in a box and it arrived smashed. And I was
Aw.
like, that's frustrating. But at the same time, it is what it is, right? And they weren't like, they never said sorry. They were just like, well, you need to send me loads of pictures because I need to do an insurance claim. And I was like, oh, it's a little bit annoying, but yes, fine, I'll do it. And then they were like, oh, you need to send it back to me as well. I was like, okay, this is turning into a part-time job and I still don't have a table. And, like you could have just packed it probably. And then when it got back to them, they said there was something missing. And I was like, I don't know. Like, don't know. I'm posting it back to you for you to put it in the bin. So I'm not entirely sure what the situation here is. But you know what? Like, I sent you the pic. I also threw all the packaging away once I'd sent you the pictures and you'd received them and you were happy. This is Stephen Bartlett level podcasting here. Anyway, then they asked for more things, more photos, more this, more that. I said, it's all been thrown away now. You've got part of it. All the other bit, the postal bit, I've thrown away. And then they messed me around for ages. And I just messaged saying, look, I've really tried to be straight with you and just be as helpful as I can. I'm just going to point out that you did post me something broken. And can we just move this to a close? Like, we've all got lives to get on with. They were like, yeah, I was going to, wrote me this really aggy message. And I will be refunding you now in full, as I always was going to. And then when they refunded me, they took £30 off. And I was like, I'm not having that. Like something rose in me, Megan. I was like, if you want to take 30 quid off me, say it to me. Say I've done something wrong. Do you know what I mean? Something rose in me. I was so angry and I was like, I paid £30 not to be this angry. And so I wrote them a message just saying, I think that's absolute bullshit. And then I said, and I'm going to block you, and I'm going to block you, which you can't do on eBay, because I just didn't want to have anything more to do with that person. So as soon as they replied, I just deleted it. I've never read what they said back.
And they didn't send the 30 quid.
No, good point. But you just got to be like, you try and be honorable. I just try and be like, try and be honorable.
Honestly, Chris, you are an upstanding member of the eBay community. You don't deserve this treatment. I think you should take it to the higher ups. Let's escalate this.
Well, you can't, Megan. I've tried with this other guy who was dodged, but like he sent me a table that, as I pulled it out, collapsed because it was full of woodworm, and I was like, "Mate, come on." Anyway,
Chris, why are you buying so many tables?
Every time they arrive, they're broken. So to get another one, but no, I just like buying furniture on eBay. If I need stuff, I like eBay. I love it. and I'm pleased you're having a nice time with Vintage.
Thank you. Yes. Look at us, sustainable queens.
Should we give your Vintage a shout out? How can people find your stuff? Or do you not want people to know
No.
it's you? Right.
I don't want the pressure.
So you're anonymous on there?
Yes. Are you anonymous on eBay?
Yeah.
Well,
Actually, all right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's slightly different. I don't have 1 million followers, but it's no one's looking for me on eBay. Although after this story, they probably.
yeah, they're gonna.
I'm going to tell one other funny story. Well, you can decide if it's funny, Megan, before we dive into the manosphere. It's about anonymity. So my friend wrote a book, and he said, "Please, could you review my book on Amazon?" So it goes up charts, blah blah blah, on the first day or whatever. So I wrote a really nice review. I had read it, and he was like, "Thanks for your review. Did you know, or I see you have actually written one other review on Amazon before?" And I was like, "Have I?" I was like, "I don't think I have." And he had clicked and screenshotted. I'd written a really aggro message about some batteries that arrived. And they were like, not, I don't know what was wrong with them, but I was just like, this is ridiculous, like real Karen language.
Oh,
I was like, oh, I do remember that now.
Wow.
I'm in my complaints era.
You know what? We all get to that stage, and just watch out, because Chris is on the warpath.
It's filling my veins, and I love it. Okay, Megan, shall we have a look at the manosphere?
If we have to, yeah, I think let's do it.
Well, I think it's great. So this was Megan's idea, because very interesting ideas about, not interesting, very interesting thoughts about it. I wanted to start because I was like yakking away about the manosphere, and I was like, let's actually check I know what it is. So would you agree with this assessment? The manosphere is a network of online communities promoting often extreme views on masculinity, gender roles, and relationships.
Yeah, spot on.
Chef's kiss. I'm going to start by saying, well, actually, I'm going to start by saying this. The interesting perspective that Megan brings to this is because it is the manosphere as we receive it is built around influencers, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
And part of your job is a huge part of your work is being an influencer, and you couldn't be further apart. So I think that's a really interesting perspective, because I said to the listeners, or we said to the listeners, has the manosphere infiltrated the LGBTQ plus community? That was our first question. 62% of you said yes.
Ooh.
And I'm really surprised by that. And I thought that was very interesting. I didn't ask how, because I'm a bad podcaster, but or bad question writer. But what does that mean? What do you think that means when you hear that? How do you think it's infiltrating, if you agree, Megan?
Well, I think it's safe to say that toxic masculinity has absolutely infiltrated the queer community. I think we see toxic masculinity in gay men. I think we see it in masc lesbians. I think we see it in some trans men. So absolutely, that's a thing. And what is the manosphere if not the extreme of toxic masculinity? And I suppose the more popular those ideas generally are, the more they are going to trickle down into all areas. Do you think? What would you have answered? Would you have said yes or no?
I would have said yes, and I would have said the same as you. I would also add in that I've had interesting conversations with trans women about toxic masculinity, and subscribing to a patriarchal idea of femininity, and how that Sean Fay, when she last came on this podcast, was talking about how that can be really alluring to satisfy patriarchal ideals, and that can make you feel, I don't think she used the word sexy, but make you feel attractive. So I think that's deeply fascinating. And I think the way I would say I see it is, or the way I've worked through in therapy, is you feel like you are less of a man in terms of mean, by being queer.
Hmm.
And then if you masculinize yourself, that can feel really good. And you have to
Mm,
interrogate that. Because
yeah.
actually, it's a gift. I feel it's really a gift to be in the hinterland. And yet, and those two things coexist, that you can feel good about masculinizing yourself, but also knowing that that is a fool's errand as well.
Yeah, I feel like you were talking a bit about this last time as well in terms of
I'm a
body
broken
image,
record.
weren't you? And
Yeah,
like, muscles.
yeah, exactly. And I think also like that when I it kind of shows up in dating and online dating profiles. And then there was also someone suggested language. I don't quite know what that means, but um, I think the manosphere is showing up in terms of safety as well.
Mm,
Like, are people feeling that the more homophobia there is flying around, that the manosphere is very much part of? I don't know. I'm not holding my husband's hand as much in public, I would say.
mm.
How about you?
I think we can definitely point to the Manosphere for the rise in intolerance for lots of different things because, like you said, and like the Louis Theroux documentary kind of touched on, is that, the entry level into the Manosphere is toxic masculinity and gym culture and how to get women. And then it's only a few levels down where you get to the more extreme intolerances, whether that's homophobia or transphobia, and then there was anti-Semitism
Mm,
a few layers down, and conspiracy theories.
yeah.
So the rise in general hatred, I think we can point a finger pretty clearly to the manosphere.
Should we talk a bit about the documentary?
Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts when you watched it.
Well, I thought it was an interesting introduction for people who maybe didn't know much about the manosphere. I think, and I've
Mm,
seen plenty of chat online saying it didn't necessarily cover new ground, it wasn't necessarily radical.
mm,
And also importantly, it didn't actually feature very many women who
mm,
are taking the brunt of the impact of the manosphere. And yet the women that we saw in there were the mums or the girlfriends of these big manosphere influencers, and not
mm,
any of the women who are facing more abuse because of these influences. I think they could have
mm,
he could have very easily found, for example, I'm not putting myself up there or anything, but maybe a feminist influencer who is taking more hate or something like that,
mm,
to say, and this is the impact of this manosphere that he explored.
mm. It's yeah. So the shape of it, just to give an explainer for anyone who hasn't seen it. I know lots of you had watched it. Louis Theroux sort of hung out with two or three
Mm.
big manosphere influencers. It was really hard to find people who would talk to him,
Mm.
which I thought he said. He sort of started by saying that, and I thought that was extremely interesting
Mhm.
because one, there's that thing of like, well, they don't really need mainstream media,
No.
you know. But also, I do think that I'm always interested by that kind of attitude because it's like, well, if you know that what you're doing, if you don't think there's anything wrong with what you're doing, why wouldn't you want someone to come and film it? You know?
Yes, because their thing was that they're very skeptical of mainstream media and how it would twist their words and make it seem as if you need to twist their words for it to sound offensive.
They're not talking in nuance, like all a bit grey. It's like, no, gay is wrong. You're like, oh, don't want to twist your words there.
Yeah, the guy who was literally like, "What, you wanna say I'm a racist? I am. You wanna say I'm homophobic? I am. But
Yeah.
alright, let's just twist that slightly."
Yeah, gosh, glad this is in the right hands. Um, yeah, I thought that was really strange. And also, forgive me for being naive, but like I didn't realize the manosphere was as homophobic as it clearly was from that documentary. I thought it was sort of
Mm.
because I think there's two different sides of of hypermasculinity, which I've experienced anyway, which is that I find it sometimes with straight men that there's either like a kind of homophobia or there is a complete dismissal. Like, it's like people don't register on their radar if they're outside of like quite a narrow idea. And it's not, I mean, it probably is rooted in homophobia, but it's, you know, it is, it's sort of otherophobia, you know, it's like narrowophobia, you know, like unless you
Yeah.
fit this narrow idea of anything, then just go away. And so I was truly shocked in the documentary by when they did that entrapment thing for that gay guy.
Was it a gay guy?
Yeah, he was gay.
I didn't even register that. Sorry, go on.
No, it's weird, isn't it? Because they didn't really, but from my understanding, caveat, there was a guy, one of the influencers or one of his team posed as a gay man and got this other real gay man to come and have a hookup, a meet up with him in real life. They waited for him because it was a trap and they beat the shit out of him. And then he said, oh, I think he said like, afterwards, the influencer who it was, because there were three, I can't remember which one it was, said that was just for the likes and I feel really bad about it. And it's like, what?
Yeah. He said it was like, that wasn't supposed to go like that. It was meant to be like a confronting, because I thought that they had tried to entrap they called it a predator sting. So I thought they were trying to go for like an older guy by pretending to be a young girl. And confront him. But to throw in the mix that it's just a homophobic attack, Christ alive, that's
Well, listeners, write in hello@homosapienspodcast.com. Let me know which it was. I think I'm worried I've got that wrong now, but let's see. Either way, not good.
No,
other ways to get likes. Puppy
mean,
photos. Have you tried puppy photos? If you want likes, they get lots.
oh, yeah, maybe change your hairstyle. People like that.
Do they?
Yeah, it's big engagement on a hair makeover.
What's a guaranteed big engagement?
Well, either very happy news or very sad news.
Interesting.
So it could be like, I'm engaged, getting married, I've got a new dog, or it could be like, you know, someone's died. Either way, it's a lot of engagement.
Right. Interesting. My dog's getting married would blow up then.
Magically.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's interesting. But what was I going to say? Where was that comment going, Megan? Here's the question. The Louis Theroux, yeah. So there was a lot of, and it's like you say, it wasn't just homophobia. There was a lot of crazy views going on. What is the link? This is what I was going to say earlier. What is the link, if any, Megan, between hypermasculinity / femininity, homophobia, anti-Semitism, paranoid conspiracy theories? Like, why are they often linked?
That, you know what, that's a question that I'm probably not equipped to answer, because I think, honestly, I think the underlying link is simply rabbit holes of extremism on the internet. And I think algorithmically, they just feed into each other of once you watch something controversial, and then the next time you go online, you get a level up of controversial.
Yes.
And they get the clicks, so they just keep offering you more and more extreme.
And that's why these Manosphere people were openly saying on the very show that we're talking about, sometimes I have to do things for engagement that are just kind of wrong, basically. They know it's wrong, but it's how you get likes or views and, whatever.
Yeah, well, that's their business model. And they were, really openly contradicting themselves, or just admitting that they were being contradictory and saying, like, the guy who bought an agency for OnlyFans models, and he sends his viewers to the pages of these OnlyFans models, but then he finds that disgusting. And if he had a daughter who did OnlyFans, he would disown her. That's completely wrong. It's completely disgusting, but I'll make money off it.
the hypocrisy was insane. But
Mm.
then, here we are. These people have a similar job title, nothing else to you. Um, how is that making you feel?
You know what one of my first feelings was when I came away, was, wow, first of all, these men, they're not stupid. They've clocked onto a very successful business model, and they've
Mm,
essentially made themselves uncancelable, right? By being
mm,
so forthright with their horribly offensive, ignorant, say whatever the fuck you want without consequence opinions. And they've said, well, this is it. This is what you get. So no one in their audience, there's no line they can cross. No one's ever going to call them out and go, "Oh, you've gone too far there, mate." Or this is
mm,
actually, we're not here for this. Because they have gone to the absolute extreme, they are uncancelable. And if you flip that to anyone with an online platform who's kind of on the left politically,
mm,
feminist or otherwise, a lot of us have spent years and years and years being so scared of being cancelled over nothing, of,
mm,
misstepping to the slightest, tiniest degree and having
mm,
the internet rage at us and tear us down and losing our platform. And I think it's so indicative of of the right and the left, and of the standard, the moral standard that we hold our public figures to, in that, in the right, you can pretty much say and do whatever the hell you want and get away with it and be popular and maintain your platform. And on the left, still, we expect moral perfection. And if you don't meet it, your platform's taken away from you. And that is one of the reasons why the ones on the right are thriving, because they cannot be taken down.
it makes the other side stronger, and that's why it's just um my favorite podcaster Alistair Campbell was talking about this thing yesterday,
Mm.
how what he was talking about, how Labour loves to call someone a traitor. Like someone eats the wrong sandwich and they're a traitor, and there's and whereas the Tories will just go further and further in on it. The more depraved someone behaves, the more they get behind them.
Yeah,
It's not
no
it,
consequences ever.
yeah, and I think it is a real point of weakness that you've got the Democrats trying to reassemble in America, and there's got to be some inflection point where hopefully someone can just think of a slightly better way, because at the moment the people who are winning are the manosphere. It's the unapologetic. And but how does it make you feel? How, because I've been writing since the beginning of the year, I have not really been online. And so I don't know what's going on in your life in the same way. Have you been online? Have you been
No,
not
I,
online?
I haven't been online either.
Oh,
So
right,
I
good.
don't really know what's going on the internet, but
It's vinted.
I've
You've
just
been
been
on
on
vinted.
Vinted, as you know, selling 85 items. Um, but I think something else that was really, really clear to me is that, the tactics of these manosphere influencers, it's not to say anything, you know, backed up by evidence or massively intelligent. It's simply to steamroller and
Yeah.
shitpost as much as you humanly can. Like the influencers in that doc were pretty much live streaming their life 24/7.
Yes.
And that's how they have such a huge influence, because they just don't stop. And it doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be good content. It doesn't have to be well done or saying anything of value. It's just constant. So you can't escape it.
And do you feel like you're being steamrolled? Has that got anything to do with why you've not been online?
Um, I feel disheartened. I felt disheartened for a long time, and it's not just me. I think, lots of influencers who were in the body positive space or in the online
Mm,
feminism space, we have been feeling increasingly disheartened for 3, 4, 5 years. Basically ever
mm,
since politically we've been sliding on over to the right more and more.
mm,
Because we can feel it. Like we feel the increase in trolls and in the manosphere, the how hard it is now to like keep the attention of an audience when there's just so much oversaturation of everything, so much noise. And yeah, it doesn't make you feel very hopeful about whether what you are doing is having a positive impact,
Mm,
which is a
mm,
shame because really, in the face of the sheer amount of content that those guys are putting out, we need to be doing more. We need to be on it. We need to be, just as much so like pouring out. So to try and get the ratio a bit better of what they're putting out versus what we can put out. But we're bloody exhausted.
mm. Yeah, I did. I know. In the back of my mind, I felt like you weren't online, and but I don't. But I also was like, sometimes it just stops showing you people, and it's really annoying. And you're like, do I go onto their page and just like 7 things so I get them back? You know what I mean? Like, how do I get that person back? But anyway, but I think it is what I don't want to put too much pressure on your shoulders here, Megan. But with the rise of that stuff, and it is doing really well, I think that there's another option, and this is my pitch to you, is that you do so much good. And I'm not talking about, it doesn't have to just, it's not just you, but people with the platform you have. I'm trying not to put too much pressure on you by saying it, is why I'm expanding it out. But you don't have to compete, but you could just still be there. Because in some ways, like, we can't buckle just because someone else is getting traction. You know what I mean? Because if you think about it, for the people who need the support, which is what this podcast is about, what your platform is about in different ways, they need it even more. Because if, like, I'm jumping ahead to the next stat, but I'll do it. Is the manosphere contributing to the increased homophobia? 88% of you listening said yes. And we can get in, because I've got some questions around that. But 88% of you said yes. So people who push back on it, but you don't have to match them. You just have to be there. Because seeing people like you cheers me up. I'm like, it's not all bad, actually, because Megan's still doing her thing. And actually, some of this is just online. And that was one of the questions I had for you. It's like, well, let's move to it. Like, how are you feeling about it as a queer woman out in the real world, right? And are you seeing it? Is it changing people? Or is it something that is blowing up online and isn't having a ton of impact actually on your day-to-day life?
I think it is trickling down to real life because I think even we could probably draw a significant connection even between, the manosphere and the massive anti-immigration protests that have been happening in this country, right? There's 100% going to be a link there. But in terms of queer phobia, I think it is trickling down. And I'm in a fortunate position because I look the way I look, I present the way I present, and I fly under the radar queer-wise a lot of the time, unless you look very closely at my fingernails and see that I have 2 short ones. Most of the time, I'm not presenting as particularly queer unless I'm out with my girlfriend and holding her hand. But she, as a more masculine presenting Black lesbian woman, she has absolutely had a higher level of bigotry and aggression. She's, even in the last year, she's had a drunk man follow her in the evening and shout slurs at her. She was antagonized outside of Pride last year, outside of Birmingham Pride, and pushed by a man who thought she was a man, who thought she was a gay man, and who assaulted her. And she's 100% more on edge when we go places.
Yeah. And it's, and so just jumping back to that stat, has the manosphere contributed to increased homophobia? 88% of you saying yes, that's what people are feeling on the ground. Is there also something to do with the chicken and egg of it all as well. Like, is the manosphere emboldening people to bring out feelings they already had, or is it creating it? You know, I think that's also really worth looking at, because it's, you know, it's that old saying, see it, you've got to see it to be it, which is about queer representation. But I actually think it's unfortunately the same the other way around with, well, if Donald Trump's being racist, then I can let it slip out. You know, what are there are no repercussions.
Exactly, I can get away with it. And I think, you know, what the manosphere does really, really well, it offers up very convincing scapegoats. We know that people love to have a scapegoat when they're disenfranchised and feeling like their life isn't going anywhere. You know, let's find a group to blame, and marginalized groups generally get the brunt of it. Interestingly, there's a line of reasoning in the manosphere of, you know, wake up, the powers that be don't want us to succeed, and these are all the people that we should blame for that. Now, there's parts of the first part where I'm like, yeah, no, that's right, buddy. But the powers that be are capitalism, you know, the super rich. They're not gay people and women. Just you got the first part. Just you went a bit off track there.
And also, they talk like they're a minority, and it's like, no, you're the majority. Like, you know, you're the ones who are, you know, that view is the dominant view, or, you know, the kind of patriarchal view, or so why are you acting like you're some splinter cell? Like, I don't,
Because if you make yourself the victim in the scenario, then you can justify any of your behaviors.
Liam Byrne, who was the Labour, do you know him? He's written a book on populism. I can't remember what he did for Labour, but anyway, something big. And he's written a book on populism, and he was talking to my favourite podcaster, Alistair Campbell, about it, about exactly this, like how populism identifies a small group and blames them for all the problems and never offers a solution. It just attributes all the problems to a group. And it's the Rest is Politics episode. I thought it was a brilliant listen. I thought he was really interesting. And again, it's like, until you can grasp that, I don't think the left can ever really take on the right until they sort of start to reapproach how to get their message across, because the left are too busy, not too busy, but can get too busy fighting each other. And that is weird that I keep talking about left and right, and as do you, is because in a way the manosphere is hard right, isn't it?
Very much, yeah.
And that's what it symbolizes, and that's why we come back to it. I wanted to ask you again, not again. I wanted to ask you about the women in the documentary, because I just thought that was so interesting, how the hyper feminine appearance, and how they did not seem to have any questions about where the cards were falling not in their favor. You know, how did you feel about it? And as a queer woman as well.
I thought the parts with the women in were the most interesting by far. I think it was very telling, actually, that the men, these like super popular, successful, millions of followers, all about misogyny and bigotry, those men, when next to their partner or their mum, you could sense the disconnect in their online persona versus who they actually are, and how they actually do still care what their mum thinks of them or what their partner thinks of them.
They became little boys, didn't they?
Yeah, they really did. Like having a little stroppy, like, Mom, I don't want to get juice.
Yeah. That's the thing I find odd about men a lot of the time, is that they do have this kind of inner child who comes out. You know, that whole thing, I think maybe you and I spoke about it, but that whole TikTok thing about boyfriend voice, how like once you start going out with a guy, after a while, he starts talking in this really silly little voice, which is actually the man that he is, you know. And I know that, you know, the gays have their own version as well, but it's, the two could not coexist, could they? The manosphere guy and the boyfriend when Louis was asking one of the guys about opinions on things for his girlfriend that he'd said online, and he was like, "No, I didn't really say that. I didn't really say that." It was like, I literally just watched the video where he said it. It was so odd.
Yeah. And more than one of the women were like, well, there's the online him and then there's the him that I get, and it's different. And I think what that should signal more than anything to the followers of these men is that you're being sold a lie. Like he's actually
Yeah.
he's not this guy in his real life, because he's maintaining relationships with women, and what he's teaching you is going to mean that you can never have a relationship with a woman. So you're looking up to someone who's actually a false character.
A false character in a pantomime sense, like it's the boo, here they come, and there's the good and the bad, and it's very unnuanced. It's just like someone, and it's almost like these people are willing to represent something horrendous as a role, and that's not acceptable, because call it a role, the repercussions are real. That guy still got beaten up who was being waited for, and all of that stuff, and I need to clarify at this juncture, I'm not sure what that person thought they were arriving for, and if there was some underage element, we know whose side I'm on, but as in I'm not on his side. But it's anyway. That's a bad example of the real life consequences. The real life consequences are real. There we go, Chris. Dig yourself out of that hole. Let's look at the next stat. So we had this really strong thing about homophobia from you all listeners, but then we asked, has it influenced how you see masculinity or femininity? And it was very strong the other way. 83% of you said no, it hasn't. The Manosphere has not influenced how you see masculinity or femininity. I was, if I had 20 years off my age, I would say I was shook.
Well, you've just said it, hon.
Oh dear.
Is that a good thing though? Because is that to say that they're not listening to the Manosphere for their opinions on masculinity or femininity?
Well, I would love that to be the case. So fingers crossed. But I think it's more a case of like, the Manosphere is simply picking up on something that is insidious anyway, right? It's just it's hyperifying, not a word, something that's out there anyway. I sort of feel that it's back to that thing we started at the beginning, which is that I see, speaking as a gay man about it, I see gay men becoming much more hypermasculine. And I think that is not because of the 3 TikTok guys in Louis Theroux's documentary, but I think it's like, it is a tide brought about by us returning, sadly, to this kind of hyper male, hyper female thing that is eroding the middle. And I think the middle, the sort of queer betweeny world, is certainly where I sit and the bit I love. And I'm not to say I'm not a victim of that, but I'm surprised people aren't talking about that in that stat. How do you see it from your perspective?
I think the Manosphere, it almost provides a very simple blueprint for the complex questions of manhood and womanhood and how we should all be. And I do get how it is alluring, because it is simple and promises these big rewards that obviously don't come through. But to anyone who is struggling with that question of how should I present myself and who am I and how should I be successful in this gender that I have, like, I understand, I get it. I see how young men especially are being driven to it.
There's a rubber stamping of it, isn't it? It's like, do that, and then someone posted this video on Instagram yesterday that was like, I wish I could remember more of it, but he's sitting in his car and it starts with him saying, be 6 foot, hit your protein targets, and he goes through all these things that we have decided, get your 10,000 steps, be a good man, be a good thing. And it was just sort of like the modern man, and how essentially this long list is the most confusing nonsense. And I fully accept that. I see that as true. And I think if something offers you a rubber stamp of like, just do this and you will be the best of the best, because there's also like this kind of best of bestness about it, isn't it?
Mm,
It's like, this is real manhood, is to have
alpha.
alpha. There we go. God, I hate that word. And yeah, it's, I suppose it makes sense. But listeners, you have spoken, and therefore, that's that. But I'm really surprised. I would have thought that people would have felt there was more from a queer female and queer male perspective. I think the manosphere is leaving such little space for women to present in a masculine way, like in a way that was 10 years ago, I don't think was an issue. I don't know what your other half thinks about that. They're also not here to speak for themselves, but
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, like, in terms of, for women, in terms of beauty standards and femininity, obviously, like, the women who were presented as acceptable within this documentary were the height of the beauty standard, and very extreme and very cosmetic procedure heavy. And then there was the interesting, Madonna whore complex of it. With the sex workers and the OnlyFans models, being on the one hand acceptable to be seen with and to get clout from and to profit off of, but then
Wow.
disgusting, and don't wouldn't like marry one of them essentially. And then the partner being this, and the one-way monogamy, because the female
Yes.
partners of the Manosphere influencers, they have to be quite pure and only with their man, whereas the men get to go off and have affairs with all these other women. So it was, Madonna whore complex in full effect, and neither one of these women are winning, because ultimately neither of them have the respect, the full personhood, of being seen as a whole human by the men. Yet both of them have to adhere to the impossible standards of beauty and femininity.
Mm. It's so interesting, isn't it? It's yeah, I just felt, I don't know, this is too simplistic, but I was like, what are you getting out of this? I didn't really understand why they wanted to be part of it. But
Right, like the partners.
yeah.
Mm. Well, I thought it was very interesting at the end of the documentary when you kind of get the updates, and one of them was, this one's wife has left him.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Excellent.
I actually also loved at the end of the documentary. I thought it was super smart how in the documentary Louis Theroux does a strongman test against one of these guys who's an influencer, and he's really strong, and Louis doesn't do as well as him. And then at the end, Louis goes back and tries to do it. And he was sort of saying, I felt in that moment, it's like, no matter where I have flown 1,000 feet above this and sort of judged it with an arched eyebrow, there is something in me that wants to be alpha, and that's in everybody, and that's the draw, And I think that alpha and all of that stuff, I think, is incredibly baked into the queer experience, because you are an outsider of that, and then you will start to show roots in or out of it, and we often talk about being young and queer and starting to try and align with everyone else, and then starting to wheel back from that when we work out it doesn't make us happy. I remember you talking about that last time we spoke, and I remember until I actually worked out that I liked who I was, and that meant staying outside of the traditional, or whatever the better word is, parameters. Then you find peace.
Yes.
And vintage. And but we said that one final stat. Do you see the effect of the manosphere in queer spaces? 44% of you said yes, 56% of you said no. So that's pretty split, but still links into everything we're talking about. And I wonder if a point to draw to a close on is there something in the idea of insidiousness, in the insidious nature of this stuff, that maybe there's something in the idea that has come up today, which I think is really interesting, about like, is it giving people permission, or has it created it, you know, or was it always running through and therefore we don't notice that it's coming out? Because I do think we've got a gap here, and I'd love to know, listeners, write in, what is the gap about whether we are all affected by what I think there's been a hypermasculinization of gay culture that feels like it's sort of going back to the 70s, actually, in San Francisco, and moustaches, and, you know, and I personally link that with the Manosphere. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that the clearest impact that the Manosphere is having in queer spaces is the feeling of not being as safe in them as we maybe felt 10 years ago, you know? Because it's, like you said, it's that emboldening, even if it's not in the spaces themselves, what's happening around the periphery of them, you know, the
Yeah.
fact that my girlfriend can literally step outside of Pride and be assaulted right there. It's all connected.
Yeah, and I remember this, you know, not to end on a bum note, but there you go. I remember when we used to go to the Georgian Dragon, and, you know, Metropolitan Bubble, etc. But the Georgian Dragon was a pub in East London, and there was a gang who used to come and beat people up outside of it about 15 years ago. And I just remember we were all so shocked. We were like, surely that doesn't happen anymore, which potentially a bit naive, but also people were shocked. Now I would not be shocked. I would have half an eye open if I was standing outside that pub, if it hadn't been turned into luxury flats. You know, like if I was standing outside a gay pub, I would definitely have a quarter of an eye on stuff. Would you not?
Yeah, and I think that goes to show, I guess, the normalization, and because of, you know, the stuff that the Manosphere is normalizing is so extreme, it then almost makes you a bit more numb to the everyday homophobia and bigotry and, you know, hatred. But no, I agree with you that would, yeah, you would have one eye looking to the side just to check.
I also think there's something that we haven't. I think we can springboard into, listeners, please write in, give your thoughts. I also think we have spoken about, but not perhaps fully, is that they're doing it in the right place, because the best place for messaging and getting your message out there is TikTok. It's where young people are, you know, it's TikTok, it's social media, it's blah, blah, blah. So it's just a modern reinterpretation of an old idea, but it's just being done in a very clickable, shareable way. And I think that's why it's gaining such traction and becoming, or, you know, it's been doing well for a long time, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like, if anyone's listening and is, you know, worried or, you know, about the Manosphere, which I think we kind of all are, I do think you can make a difference by having conversations in real life, even if you don't have a massive online platform and can spread a message that way. I think all of us need to be talking to, especially if we know any, you know, boys, young men, we need to be talking to them IRL.
Yes, that's so true. And remembering that actually a lot of them are feeling disenfranchised by a reputation that they don't feel they have, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, allow yourself to be pleasantly surprised sometimes.
Yeah. Amen, sister. Megan, this has been wonderful. Thank you. It's the beginning of a discussion, as always. We had so many interesting messages, replies when we did our last episode together. So listeners, write in hello@homosapienspodcast.com, @homosapiens on Instagram. Write in and tell us your thoughts. What did we miss? What did we not miss? And Not a Phase. We're supporting Not a Phase with this season of the podcast. So please write in if you are trans and would like some gender affirming underwear. We're raising money to buy it for you. Or if you know someone you'd like to nominate someone, please write in and do that. Stay safe, eat your greens. Anything else to add there, Megan?
Have a nap if you fancy it.
Oh, good. Can I just say as well, there is a wonderful piece coming off you today.
Oh, thank you.
There's
I
a
haven't been on the
real
internet.
yeah, I think there's a calibrated, like, deep sense of calibration in you.
I appreciate that very much.
Very
I will try to
interesting.
maintain it when I go back.
Yeah, don't leave us. You bring joy.
Oh, thank you, my darling.
Listeners, thanks for listening and see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye.